Hello again and welcome back to the second part of the discussion on verb types. If you remember, we were looking at some verbs which are typically followed by another verb with ing. There are some other verbs which are usually followed by a that clause. We have verbs which are followed by a to infinitive verb. And we have verbs which are followed by an object plus a to infinitive. And remember, if a verb appears in one category box, it doesn't mean that it only appears in one box. Sometimes a verb can have more than one possible structure. Then we looked at this small box at the top here, which are verbs that can be followed by the ing or the to infinitive, but there is no change in the meaning. That is a very small box. And then we come to this problematic box. This is the box where we have verbs that can be followed by the ing or the to infinitive, but there is a change in the meaning. And in the last video we looked at stop, when it can be followed by ing, when it can be followed by a to infinitive, and the change in the meaning. And also we looked at try, when it is followed by ing or when it is followed by the to infinitive, and how it is used to express different meanings. In this video we'll be looking at remember, forget, regret, like and need. All of these verbs can also be followed by the ing form of the verb or the to infinitive, but the uses are slightly different. So let's begin with remember. I remember sending the letter. Do you remember seeing this film before? Now in both of these examples we have the verb remember followed by another verb with the ing form. Now, if we look at the order in which these events take place, I remember sending the letter. Remember is happening after sending the letter. So sending the letter is in the past. It's previous to you remembering. The same as do you remember seeing this film before? The activity of seeing the film happens before you remember seeing the film. This is when we use the ing form. Here are some other examples, but with the to infinitive. Did you remember to phone Bob? I must remember to buy some bread. In these examples we have remember with a to infinitive. And we can look at it like this. Remember is taking place before the activity of phone or buy. So the question is, did you remember and then phone? And I must remember and then buy. So remember in these examples is happening before the verbs phone and buy, whereas previously we were talking about remembering a previous activity. So this is the key to remember when it's with ing or to infinitive. Compare these two. Did you remember to phone Bob? I remember phoning Bob. So remember and then the activity of phoning, or remember a previous activity of phoning. It depends which order these verbs take place. So we could give the visual representation like this. Remember now in the present, and then something in the past, we would use ing, but something that is going to happen soon, like I must remember to phone, I remember and then I phone. Forget can be very similar. I'll never forget going to Rome. And if you think about it, I'll never forget means something very similar to remember. So we can depict it in visual form like this. I'll never forget, and going to Rome is previous to me saying I'll never forget. Whereas if I say this, I forgot to buy some bread, the verb forget took place before the not buying the bread. Again, it depends which order these verbs would appear. Let's look at regret. I regret dancing on the table. The verb dancing takes place before me expressing regret. Okay? I'm expressing regret about something that happened previously, as depicted with this diagram. Now, in this context, we regret to inform you that the next train will be delayed. This is a typical railway announcement. You hear this a lot on public transport. But this regret is not expressing regret about something that previously happened. This is expressing regret about something which is going to happen in the near future. We regret to inform you. So again, it's following the same pattern. So we can put remember, forget, and regret into this same category. So when the ing appears, we are talking about something that happened previous to remember, forget, or regret. When we're using a to infinitive, we are talking about something which is going to happen after that verb. Need is an interesting verb. It has an ing or a to infinitive, and they are quite different. I need to get a job. He needs to give up smoking. In this context, the need is very similar to a modal auxiliary verb. In fact, it is a semi-modal, it is sometimes referred to as. And I need to get a job, we could say it's something like I should get a job, or I have to get a job. And he needs to give up smoking. So when we're talking about something that should be done, we've got a to infinitive. We can also use an ing, but it's quite different. The house needs cleaning. This is something similar to a passive, at least in its usage. You see, we are not specifying an agent for the verb clean. We are not talking about who needs to clean the house. We could say somebody needs to clean the house, making it a similar structure to the previous one with to infinitive. Somebody needs to clean the house. But in this structure with the ing, we're not specifying an agent of who is doing the cleaning. We're just talking about the house that needs cleaning. The car needs repairing, or somebody needs to repair the car. The plants need watering, or somebody needs to water the plants. So this structure is very similar to a passive in that we don't specify the agent of the verb. We are using the object of the verb as the subject of the sentence. Here is like. Now these are very similar when we use like with an ing and like with a to infinitive. Like with an ing expresses an enjoyment of the activity. So here's an example. I like eating chocolate. Most of the time when you use like, you can use the ing form of the verb. It's much more common. If you use like with a to infinitive, it's more like you consider it the correct thing to do. So this example, I like to visit the dentist at least once a year. You don't really like visiting the dentist. It's not a pleasant thing to do, visit the dentist, but it is the correct thing to do. So you might say, I like to visit the dentist at least once a year. You wouldn't say, I like visiting the dentist, because nobody likes visiting the dentist. So here are some more examples. I like reading, I like to read. There is a very small difference between the two. If you say I like reading, maybe it would imply that you enjoy being lost in a fantasy world. You love the world of fiction, or you just love the way the words appear on the page and the sound of the descriptions and the lovely vocabulary that writers use, and you enjoy someone's writing style. Or I like to read would imply maybe you feel a better person for reading. You become more knowledgeable. You increase your wisdom and intelligence through reading. So in the second one, you consider it the more correct thing to do because it is good for you. I like cooking. I like to cook. In the first one, you like being in the kitchen. You like mixing the ingredients. You like stirring the pot and the flavors coming out of the kitchen. I like to cook is more like it's the correct thing to do. I like to cook because it's healthier than ordering a takeaway. So there is a small difference between these two. Well, I hope that was interesting. I hope that explained a few of the complexities of English grammar in a fairly clear way that you understood. If you enjoyed that, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can share it with all your friends if you wish to, and please leave a comment down below and tell me what you think about it, or any other suggestions for videos that you'd like to see in the future. Oh, and don't forget to listen to our podcast every Sunday. It's very interesting.